So in this episode, we'll start off a little bit generic on things that I look for on a broader scope, and then we'll get into a little bit more specifics on what types of restaurants exactly that you should be looking for when you visit Japan. So get ready. Konnichiwa, Pat Tokuyama here, creator of All Day I Eat Like a Shark, where I share my Japanese cooking videos once a week showing you guys how to make Japanese food. So if this is your first time here, consider subscribing for more videos like this one. Today is another episode of Shark Bites. Are you excited? I know I am, because today we're going to be talking about how I choose restaurants when I go to Japan. Are you planning to go to Japan soon? And if not soon, are you ever going to go to Japan? And if you are, maybe these are some of the things that you might want to keep in mind for your next trip. So before we get into what I look for when I'm looking at restaurants to eat at in Japan, I think you're going to probably like number 4. Can you guess what that is? Let me know in the comments below, or tell me what you look for and when you go and research restaurants to eat at in Japan. Okay, so number 1, one of the important things that I look for is it a specialty restaurant? So in Japan, there are all kinds of different specialty restaurants or shops. Senmonten is what it's called in Japanese. Literally, it's a specialty store or specialty shop. And what these places are, these Senmonten places, these Senmonten shops, they specialize in like 1 or 2 dishes. So for example, yakitori, which is barbecued chicken on the skewers. Yakiniku, which is Japanese style barbecue. There might be like a fish specialty restaurant. There might be like an okonomiyaki place, which is savory Japanese pancake. There might be a soba shop, which literally just serves nothing but soba noodles. There might be a tempura shop, which is a fried shrimp and vegetables. They serve nothing but that with some rice and other sides, for example. So those are a few examples of specialty shops, senmonten. So that's one thing that I look for. So number 2, what I also look for when I'm researching restaurants are the reviews. So I'll primarily use Tabelog. Tabelog, if you haven't heard of it before, is a crowdsourced website where you can read all kinds of restaurant reviews for foodies who like to eat out. They'll leave reviews based on service, based on the food, the atmosphere, post pictures. They'll talk about the menu, the service, the ingredients, the chef, the history, just like they do on the American website Yelp or TripAdvisor, if you're familiar with either of those. Tabelog as well as Google are 2 of my main resources when looking at restaurants in Japan. So those are for the reviews. So the third thing that I look for is the menu. So I always take a look at the menu to see if it's something unique. So sometimes there is no menu, but when there is a menu, that's one of the things that I factor in. Usually they'll have like a sample menu of what's in season or previous season's menu, and that'll give you somewhat of an idea of what to expect. And also you can look at the pictures in the website. Sometimes it might just be in Japanese only, which is fine because pictures you don't need to understand Japanese, but sometimes the menu might be in Japanese. In that case, maybe you'll need somebody to translate for you. Aside from the menu, if it's whether or not it's interesting, the 4th thing that I'd look at is the history. So if it's an old restaurant, these are called shinise. Shinise in Japanese is an old establishment. You might find these in cities like Kyoto, for example, where they have restaurants that are like 200, 300, 400 years old. There might be a few in Tokyo or Osaka. And for these restaurants, they have been in business for such a long time. It's like, why wouldn't I eat there? There must be something good about it. And usually there is something good about eating at those restaurants because they've been handing down recipes over the generations. Usually they're family owned and they specialize in something that makes them popular and have enabled them to stay in business for such a long time. Shinise is another type of establishment that I'd look for when trying to decide where to eat in Japan. Ever heard of that one before? Okay, so the 5th thing that I'd look at is the Michelin guide. So not all the cities in Japan have restaurants that are in the Michelin guide, but if I'm looking for fine dining options, so kaiseki. So kaiseki ryori, if you've never heard of it, it's like a high-end dining experience. If you've never had that in Japan, usually they serve you a ton of different plates. All of them are usually within the season. There's some sort of a theme that goes on, and it's quite the experience. Highly recommended if you've never had it before. You usually get all kinds of different things. It's a huge assortment of different types of foods to enjoy, and the service is really good. So yeah, the Michelin guide, while it may not be available in all cities in Japan, that is one thing I'll consider if I'm visiting a major city which does have Michelin rated restaurants. It's very good for fine dining. Okay, the 6th thing that I'll look at is price. So in Japan, when you're visiting, you can get away with not spending too much, maybe even the equivalent or even less than what you spend at home when you eat out, for example. Depending on where you go, for example, if you go to a teishoku place, which is like literally a set menu type of restaurant, they usually have set meals, maybe from 1,000 to 1,500 yen, which is about $10 to $15. And that might be enough for 2 people actually, because the servings are pretty large. Sometimes you'll get like a rice bowl with a noodle bowl, for example, and that's enough really for 2 people to split. On the opposite side of that, or on the other end of the spectrum, you could spend over $400 or $500 per person if you're eating at a very nice kaiseki ryori place or other, high-end restaurants. So sushi, for example, can get very expensive. Meat can also be very expensive. So yeah. That's another thing that I always look at. I usually try to cap it, depending on where I'm going. I usually try to cap it around 150 max per person, because that is quite a lot. And the higher you go, that's not like the more that you can eat. And usually I haven't really found the justification for spending that much more, when either way you're going to be full, whether you spend 50 bucks, 100 bucks, 150 bucks, or like 400 or 500 bucks, you're still going to get full. So about 150 is the max for me, or 15000 yen. So 7, the last thing that I would consider, word of mouth. So family, friends, some of the local people. So for example, whenever you're traveling somewhere, you might have to ask somebody a question. And one of those questions might be, where do you eat? Where would you recommend eating? So that might be your host, the tourism office, any of the locals in the shops, whoever it is that you meet on the street, anybody. And I'm sure that there would be a lot of people that would love to tell you where to get the best Japanese food on your trip to Japan. So that was pretty much it. I don't know if you have other things that you consider when you're looking for restaurants to eat at, whether in Japan or elsewhere. If you have any, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Maybe we can learn something from each other. And if you like this video, you want to see more videos like this one, subscribe if you haven't already. And other than that, I'll see you in my next video. Ja ne. Bye bye.